Hello. So this is my video response on the phonics study that we did. It was a quantitative research report. It was written by Applebaum, Hazeltine, and McMurray in 2013, and it was published in Developmental Psychology. The title is Statistical Learning in Reading. Variability in irrelevant letters helps children learn phonics skills. It's clear that the intended audience of this article was literacy researchers and not necessarily teachers. And it was really interesting once I figured out what was going on. It was loaded with terms like in the title, statistical learning and variability in irrelevant letters. They stated the purpose, which gave me no more clues. It said it was to examine two conflicting principles that may apply to learning grapheme, phoneme, correspondence regularities for vowels. The two principles are variabilities in irrelevant units may help children derive invariant relationships. Not sure what that means. And the other principle is similarity between words may force children to use a deeper analysis of lexical structure. That makes sense. Here's what the authors did. So they created a pretest of words with CVC words and CVVC words. And based on that pretest, they divided the students into two groups. It was balanced by the pretest and by some other demographics, so the groups were evenly matched. And then they trained the students on, this is what they said, a small set of GPC regularities for vowels embedded in words with either high or low consonant similarity, and tested their generalizations to novel tasks and words. So what they actually did was they trained the students on CVC and CVVC words, and they used three different vowels and three different vowel digraphs. So half of the students were trained on words with variable consonant frames. The others were trained on words with similar consonant frames. Consonant frame would be the consonants on either side of the vowel. So if the word is cat, the consonant frame would be C and T. If the word was boat, the consonant frame would be B and T. They didn't really explicitly teach the students. They just had them perform tasks using the words that contained the patterns that they wanted them to learn. And like I said, they learned 6 vowel patterns. Then afterwards, the researchers administered a post-test to determine whether the students improved and to what extent. And what they found was variability offered a consistent benefit over similarity. So if the consonant frames, the consonants on either side of the vowel, were different than the other words, the students actually did better and learned them better. They did have some possible threats to validity, which were that on the list of similar words, the same consonant appears with a lot of the different vowels and pronunciations, which might affect the performance. They said they might associate the consonant with the pronunciation rather than the vowel. And they said another problem was that the list with variable words had more than twice as many consonant frames and more consonants than the similar ones. So the lists probably needed to be matched a little better. So the findings suggest that when we teach CVC and CVVC words, that teachers might want to vary the consonants that are at the beginning and ends of the words. And the author suggests that actually teaching word families might be less effective than the tasks that demonstrate different patterns, in which the regularities are still intact. And they explain that children don't automatically know which letters to ignore when they're given words with a regular pattern. So they can make irrelevant connections if the words are too similar. So they might actually base their assessment of the word based on the consonant rather than the vowel. What I thought was kind of interesting was the researchers state that the immediate application of their findings was clear, that students might learn better if they don't study word families, but instead work with varied words, and that might be a better approach. And they said that their findings could be easily applied to early reader texts, worksheets, and other activities. I think this might be a little premature, so they're suggesting a complete overhaul of materials and curriculum based on one study, and one study that had some validity problems as we discussed. So before I applied this principle to my classroom, I'd probably want to see some other research that had the same results. And I might want to see some studies comparing word family study to instruction using variable consonants. So don't worry, we're not going to change the whole curriculum all over throughout the United States. And then just as a side note, the words that they used for training and for the pre and post tests were actually created by the authors. And so they had an expert in early reading review those lists and confirm that they're appropriate for first grade. So I just thought that was an interesting tidbit. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you in class.